And welcome back to Bayou Time. Glad to have Lieutenant Blake Tabor with us again. You saw him on last week. He's a public information officer for the Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office. And Lieutenant Tabor, good to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
Under tough circumstances, of course, because today we want to talk about a shooting that happened outside of a local bowling alley.
Sure.
So, can you give us some details on that?
Well, I can tell you that shortly after 11 p.m. on Saturday the 13th, we started getting calls of a shooting that had taken place and a disturbance at the bowling alley. We did have officers present at the bowling alley at the time of the incident. They were able to quickly get it neutralized. We discovered the victim, and by that point, anyone that probably would have been directly involved with the crime had fled the area very quickly.
And of course, we never want to target an establishment when we're given a news story, because in today's world, it can happen pretty much anywhere. So
Absolutely.
they just happen to be at the place where somebody was looking and found them.
Absolutely.
So we want to be fair to the establishment too. Are y'all just finding that it's more and more difficult to keep track of when these things are going to happen? Because boy, it seems like the frequency has just increased.
Yeah, and we always see sort of a spike or a trend that happens during the summertime when the kids aren't in school. We see a sort of a spike in juvenile-related crimes, and that tends to taper off as school gets going. But the severity of the violent crimes that are happening, not only with juveniles but just people throughout Terrebonne Parish, it's concerning.
Can you give us any indication of the well-being of the person that was shot?
Yes, they are in stable condition right now. Does not appear to be life-threatening, so that's a plus.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What kind of advice could you give to parents watching? Unfortunately, or fortunately, with social media, people know about these things long before law enforcement can ever get out there and maybe try to put a stop to this. So hints are being given, or somebody's on talking nonsense, and then it escalates. What kind of tips could you give people on Facebook to try to recognize?
Yeah, and what we try to tell everyone is we have a new initiative at the sheriff's office, and I say new, but it's something that's kind of come to light, and it's if you see something, say something. And when you're dealing with the social media component, it's so difficult because people probably see inflammatory chatter throughout social media on a daily basis. And, what do you report? What do you not report? But with social media, these things can escalate so quickly that it's very challenging for not only our law enforcement agency, but, law enforcement agencies across the country. Yeah. Especially with parents, we always tell them, monitor your child's social media to the best of your ability. When it comes to social media, there's a lot of things that are built in, and even certain apps that, you can hide things not only from your parents, but from other people. Mm-hmm. And so it inherently becomes very difficult. But if you do a little bit more to try to delve into what they're doing or determine what type of apps or social media platforms they're using, that can also be a pretty good indicator as well.
Yeah. We talked about it briefly the other day with school starting and all, and just to send this message out to anybody who's listening, y'all have put a lot of things in place to make sure that the students remain safe in Terrebonne Parish schools.
Sure. And look, we've made a lot of changes internally to make sure that we have people present in schools because we understand the importance and the dynamic of that. We've also added several SROs to local schools, so we're doing what we can to try to combat that at school. But what we're seeing now is a lot of times these crimes aren't just happening at school, they're happening away from school, and that's inherently difficult for everyone.
The sheriff, prior to him being sheriff, was given a lot of the, going into the schools and doing seminars and actual reality type run-throughs with teachers and high-ups, and we covered it as a media. It was quite chilling, but it told a very important story.
Absolutely. And look, and the active shooter is something that we're very involved with, whether that be response, teaching teachers, talking to students about how and what they're going to see in the event that happens. But that's just one component. Mm-hmm. What we see often is violence that happens student on student. So, we take a very proactive approach when it comes to our DARE program, and it's trying to foster new relationships to make sure that the youth is understanding that they can come to law enforcement and they can talk with us. It's trying to foster relationships between the students and law enforcement and students as well.
We saw a couple of cases last year where bullying, whether racially motivated or just because people want to be cruel, escalated. But I know y'all been giving advice for a long time that students can help students out by pulling them before they pull the prank or whatever and say, whoa, whoa, don't do it. It could ruin your life.
Absolutely, and that's a big component of our DARE program is just making sure that the kids understand that they have an avenue to be able to communicate. And oftentimes, when the students communicate like that, we can step in and we can sort of neutralize things that are happening. But the reality is, we can talk for hours about why things are the way they are. But what we've seen is since social media has become so mainstream that it's a very difficult thing to deal with. And it's rampant among youth,
All right. We have Lieutenant Blake Tabor. Always good to see you.
You too.
We appreciate it and keep up the great work. And there you have it from our news desk, keeping you up to speed on a shooting that took place outside an establishment, bowling alley. And you heard from that. And also heed the warning and give advice when it comes to the schools. A lot of things are being done. We'll have the parish president on during the week to talk about their aspect of that and a lot more here on Bayou Time. We'll see you with another segment coming up.